Hello everybody, my name is Chris Thorpe, and in this lesson we will be talking about migrating chats and conversations within a Teams environment. We'll go through the ability and what we can do in terms of a Teams migration. I have a team that I've provisioned here before, President's team. I've provisioned this already, so I can now go into the migration options. Now there are four main sections in here. So the first one is the ability to migrate messages and files. So what this will do is it will take the SharePoint site, it will take all of the conversations, and if I've got these options ticked here, it will take across the OneNote, the Planner, the Word, Excel, PowerPoint apps that I have, and my group mailbox. So effectively, it is a lift and shift of that source mailbox and the source team, and I'm going to migrate everything across into the target. This is useful for if you're doing a one-shot migration of your team. You want to take everything across and then you want to start using it in the target immediately. However, what you can also look at is how we can stagger this. You may want to take the messages and files. That will take the SharePoint site that's sitting in the background, and it will take all of the conversations that we have and migrate all of those across. It will not, however, migrate OneNote, Planner, Word, and Group Mailbox. We can do that, and then as an incremental migration, we can choose to say, okay, I'm going to use my previously migrated files, won't try and migrate any of the existing conversation messages or any of the files, but I can then tick these options below, and it will take all of these live files and move them across as a second option. Now, this is useful for where people are working heavily in the OneNote Planner, the apps, and then maybe sending mails through. We don't see a lot of files being attached to the SharePoint environment of the team, and we don't see a lot of conversations going through. So we can use that to migrate and take those content across. We can take the migrate messages only. Now, this will exclude any of those files that are in the SharePoint, and it will just allow us to migrate the conversations. And we can run this multiple times. It will just take an increment of the last message that was sent and pull all of those across as part of this. You can see there we've got the option as well to migrate the mailbox. So I could just untick that, and then I will only take the migration of the messages. I can use the option to migrate the message mailbox as well. We have a number of different options in there in terms of migrating the Teams data in slightly different ways. What we can also do as part of the migration is that we can migrate chats. You can see here that I've got a few users who have their account mappings. Account matching has been completed. Their OneDrive status has been completed, but their chats have not been migrated yet. And so this is very important when we talk about migrating chats from a one-to-one private chat perspective. There are a number of caveats that we have to specify and a number of things that we have to do before we would look at migrating the chats. From my perspective, the chat migration should always be the final thing, because you need to make sure that the accounts are matched. You need to make sure that the user's OneDrive has been migrated completely and it's finalized. The user has been moved across, and then we can migrate the chats as the final piece of the puzzle. The other things to bear in mind are that the way that the chats are stored, all of the chats that we have are stored in the user's mailbox who initiates the chat. If I'm initiating this chat to an external account, then we will migrate that chat across into the new tenant. The external user will be anonymized, and they will just say, this is a chat to an external user. And the reason for that are down to GDPR and privacy notices. That user may not have agreed to have that chat converted into the new tenant. There's a lot of things in there that we want to make sure that it's anonymized. This is our way of doing it. If, however, that external user has initiated the chat to me, that chat will not be migrated across because all of the messages are stored in that user's OneDrive, not within ours. And so that's what we have to be aware of in terms of how we get that content across. So the process for migrating the chat is very simple. Because Megan hasn't had their account migration set, they haven't got their migration of their OneDrive completed, I would not pick that account to migrate because it would just cause problems. Adele, however, is a perfect candidate to migrate. So if I click on the migrate option, I can choose to migrate. There are no options because all we are doing is moving the chat from one place to another, and we are rehydrating it. So I will then say next, and I will finish. And I can create a collection for this, so I could have 50 or 100 different chats that I want to create as a single workflow, and I can migrate them across. Another important thing to bear in mind is that the nature of the chats are that each individual chat message is regarded as a separate item. And so if you can imagine you've had regular conversations with your colleagues, you may have hundreds or maybe even thousands of chat items in that environment. And each one of those will be counted as a separate item. And so what we are seeing at the moment, talking here at the beginning of June 2021, we are seeing that this can get heavily throttled by Microsoft because what it has to do is it has to initiate a message and a receive and a send, and it generates a lot of noise as part of that migration. So we are seeing, particularly during business hours, if people are trying to run their chats, it will get throttled. It will take a long time to migrate. You want to make some consideration about splitting the number of users down into smaller groups and migrating them as separate items to reduce the chance of throttling. I would also talk to your end users and explain to them that this is a lengthy process. It may take up to a week or 2 weeks for all of their chats to be migrated across, and we have all of those details across as part of that. We have a look in our tasks. We can see the task is at 10%, and if I go into the individual events, it will tell me that it's migrating particular chat. Got a couple there that are starting, and it's migrating them across into the target. This is also a one-shot migration. We don't run an incremental migration from there. So again, that's another good reason for making sure that the user has migrated into the target tenant before we start the migration of their one-to-one chat. I hope that was informative and useful for you. Thank you.